Hi friends of the Greeting Farm. Welcome to another video on the Greeting Farm YouTube channel. My name is Carissa. I have a YouTube channel called Inky Fairy Designs. You may know me from there. And I'm going to show you how I colored this cute scene using Greeting Farm stamps. And the medium I'm using today are by Derwent. I'm using the metallic watercolor pencils as well as the Inktense pencils. And the stamp sets by the Greeting Farm that I used to create this cute scene on my card is called, they're called the Mermaid Grotto, and that has the cute little bottle with a mermaid, and then also mermaid kisses to add additional little mermaids and elements in the scene. So that's how those are the stamps that I use today. I am stamping on this Stonehenge white paper. Now it's not technically a watercolor paper, but it works because I'm not using a ton of water for this technique. I stamped all my images in this Brutus Monroe detail ink in Raven. It's a really good dark black and it's permanent ink, so it's great for watercoloring. Okay, so let's get right into the coloring now. For this technique, what I find, and for these images, because they are pretty small, they're great for like planners and kind of things like that, but I loved using them to build up a scene and create an image, like a larger image for my cards. So what I find is that for these images, in particular using these kind of watercolor pencils, I like to use a water brush. Now I keep my water brush filled with water so that my tip is always a little bit wet, and I'm able to pull the color from my pencil. You see I go, I'm just pulling that color directly from the pencil tip and bringing it to the paper, and then I will clean off my water brush either on my hand a lot of times because it's right there, it's easy, and there's not a ton of water on there, or I do have like a scratch paper or paper towels off to the side, and I can really clean it. Like if I'm switching colors, I'll do that. But if I'm just working in the same color, a lot of times I'll just kind of like wipe it on my finger or my hand if it's getting, if I want to clean it off before kind of lightening up any of the colors. What I do is I start in one area of the image, and then I'll leave a white area that I didn't color, and then I will blend that out with the water brush. And the other thing that I'm doing, I don't know if you've noticed, I'm jumping around the image, and I do this when I'm watercoloring. And if you have found that you have a hard time with watercolors, or your colors are getting really muddy, or they're blending into areas that you don't want them to go into, skip around and jump around to different areas of your image or what you're coloring on your card, and that will give those other areas a chance to dry before you do any watercoloring in an area next to something that you've already colored. Another thing that I like to do, and this is because two things. One is I don't like to think a lot about the colors that I'm using, and I don't like to think about, oh my gosh, what color am I going to do her hair? What color am I going to do her tail? You know, that kind of thing. So when I use one color for the tail, you're going to see that I then move to one of the other mermaids and I'll do her hair, or I'll do her little seashells. And so then each of the mermaids has one of those colors somewhere on that image. So it kind of, you know, makes the whole thing cohesive, and they work together and they kind of belong together. And then it's also, I don't have to think about, oh, okay, what am I going to color her hair now? I've already got the color out. And so whatever I've used, like I'm going to use this pink on her hair at the top, and then I'm going to use that same pink once I'm done there, and I'm doing the tail of the one underneath her, and then I'll do the seashells of the one at the bottom. And then I also added a little bit more pink to some of the other areas just to give some more dimension to the hair and like to the mermaid tails and stuff like that. And not just in the mermaids, you'll see me use that same color throughout the stamped images that I have. So that's just a little trick that I like to use, because sometimes when I sit down to color, especially a scene like this, because if you guys know me, I'm not usually a scene builder type of person, but there are times where it's really fun, and especially with these little images, it's easy to build them up and create these cute little scenes. So that's just a trick I use so that I'm not constantly thinking, okay, now what am I going to color this? What am I going to color this? What am I, so that's what I do. And so it just makes it a lot easier. Now, one of the things that I love, I wanted to talk to you guys about the Inktense pencils. Now, specifically the Inktense pencils, they have this property where it's basically an ink in a pencil form. So when that dries, it is water soluble once you put it down the first time, but once that layer dries, it's permanent. So it's a really great medium to get that watercolor look, but you also have the ability to build layers on top of it, and the layer underneath isn't going to move like a lot of times when you're using traditional watercolors. So that's one of the cool things about it. The metallic watercolor pencils that I'm using, they are not permanent. They're basically a watercolor pencil, just your traditional kind of watercolor pencil, but they do have a metallic kind of sheen to it. So it's not very noticeable, but you can see that it has like this metallic kind of sheen on it. That's the best way I can describe it. And the colors are really pretty, and they look great on dark cardstock. So like if you wanted to color on black cardstock or even craft cardstock, this would look really cute on craft cardstock. Those metallic colors tend to pop and look brighter on darker cardstocks, and you see that element of that metallic more. But they work well together, and having a limited palette like this, I know the Derwent Inktense pencils, I believe, go up to 72. Don't quote me on that. I only have, my largest set is a 36, but you can see even though here I'm using a set of 12, you really don't need a ton of colors, because with the Derwent Inktense especially, you can build up that shading and all of that. So I'm finally done with like the inside of my little bottle here. I think they look so cute. I wanted to kind of slow it down and let you really see all of the shading and dimension that I was able to create. Now I want to make sure that that layer is completely dry, or that part is completely dry, before I move on, because what I'm going to do next is I'm going to add kind of like the water element to this little bottle. Now I'm only focusing on the bottle at the moment, but you'll see later that I realize it looks a little odd that I have these two mermaids trapped in this bottle filled with water, and then one just kind of floating above randomly. So that's what I'm telling you guys as far as like scene building. It's not my jam, I guess you would say. I'm a little rusty with it. I need definitely more practice with it, but I fixed that. So I know it looks a little weird right now, but we're gonna fix that. And so you saw in the beginning the way I was coloring those images, I was taking the color from my pencil and then adding it to those areas with the water brush. For the bottle, I wanted to also show you that these pencils work great if you want to color directly on your paper with the pencil and kind of get your shading and your color down on the paper, and then bring your water brush in and pull that color out. And whether you're using the metallic color pencils, watercolor pencils, or the Inktense pencils, both of them just literally melt on the spot and blend, and it's beautiful. So here you can see I'm like, okay, now this looks a little weird. So I added some pencil lines, just kind of my own, with a graphite watercolor pencil to kind of ground my floating bottle. And so it's like sitting on the ocean floor now. And then I used some of the elements in the Mermaid Grotto set to add some more little seaweed. And I love the little fish in there because you have one fish going in each direction. So I was able to add those around my little bottle. So now we have established that this bottle is sitting on the ocean floor for whatever reason, and the little mermaids, it's like the little playground, and So now it's not so like this little mermaid is floating out on top of this bottle. So yeah, I told you I'd fix it. I promised, and I did. So I love these little fishes, and I am coloring them in. And again, because these are really small images, it's just so much easier for me to go use my water brush as the paintbrush, and using my pencils kind of like a palette. So I just lift the color from them, and I'm adding them to the little fish. And, you know, even though they're little, I want them to have more dimension. They're like rainbow fish. I don't know. They have some fun colors on them. So now I'm going to add the ocean floor, and I don't have the exact colors, so I apologize about that. But I basically use, I think, every color that comes in the 12 set of Inktense Derwent pencils. So those are the colors that I'm using. And then for the metallics, I think I really stuck to the green, the blue, the pink, and the purple. And then I did use like the copper and the gold for the little treasure chest that's in the bottle. And I also added some texture there because you can leave it, the pencil, just as a pencil. You don't have to always blend it out, even though they are water soluble. So now I'm going in, and here I'm using 3 different color blues for the ocean because I wanted the bottle to definitely stand out. I didn't want it to blend too far. Like, I didn't want to use the same color blues that I used in the water. I think I use some of the same color, but I also bring in that teal color from the metallic, and then I bring in this really dark blue that is in the Inktense set, and also the metallic blue. So what's awesome about that is that you can see that I'm blending those 3 different colors on my paper first, and kind of getting where I want the darkest shading to be, and establishing that before I go in with the water brush to blend it out. But the great thing about adding all 3 of those colors on my paper and then coming in with the water, especially for a background like this, is that they blend together on the paper, and so it makes new colors and unexpected surprises, which is my favorite thing about watercolors. And it just does all that work for me while I bring in the water, and all I'm doing is blending out those colors. And even you can see this little scribble line that ends up going away completely. So like I said, I wasn't working on watercolor paper. It's the Stonehenge paper that's basically for color pencils, but because I'm not using a ton of water, it works. So that's my scene. You can see I really love using these pencils because you can get that watercolor kind of loose, free-flowing look, but with the pencils you still have a little bit more control, which I know with people who I talk to, they are most intimidated by watercolors because they can get away from you, like they can run away from you. So all I did was die cut that scene, put a simple sentiment on it, added it to some blue cardstock base, and that's it. That's my card. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please be sure to thumbs up and subscribe to the Greeting Farm channel. I'll put a link here where you can find me on YouTube, and I'd love it if you subscribe to my channel as well. Thank you to the Greeting Farm for inviting me to their channel. I hope you enjoyed this video, and maybe I will see you again soon. Bye.